These are stories where love meets betrayal. Stories that make you see life a little differently.
The rain poured without pause that evening, each drop hitting the pavement like a tiny drumbeat of fate. I watched it through the fogged-up window, feeling the rhythm echo in my chest. He had always been late, but tonight it felt different. Not careless, not distracted. Something heavier, darker hung in the air between us. I clutched the mug in my hands. Steam rose in thin wisps, curling into the shape of questions I was too afraid to ask. I wanted to scream, to shout, to demand answers, but the sound caught in my throat. I remembered our first apartment on a rainy afternoon much like this one. We unpacked boxes together, laughed at our clumsiness, and promised each other forever. I had believed forever, and now forever felt fragile, splintered like broken glass beneath the relentless rain. The door opened quietly. He stepped inside, water dripping from his coat. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hey," he said softly. I didn't answer. I didn't move. We had grown skilled in the art of silence, speaking only when necessary, hiding more than we revealed. He set his coat down, but the faint perfume lingered, a scent I didn't recognize, a subtle, unfamiliar trace, yet familiar enough to make my stomach twist. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself that love could endure even the smallest doubt. But then I saw the phone, half hidden in his pocket. A name flashed for just a moment before he noticed me staring. My heart skipped, then fell. He noticed my gaze. "It's nothing," he said too quickly, too quietly. I nodded, pretending to believe him, but inside I felt a fracture forming, an invisible crack spreading through the foundation of us. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the window pane. It mirrored the storm in my chest, a storm I could neither escape nor ignore. We sat together, yet apart. Words hung suspended, heavy and unspoken. I wanted to reach for him, and yet the instinct to protect myself kept my hands still. "I think we need to talk," I finally whispered. My voice trembled, though I tried to steady it. He swallowed. He looked away. He said, "I know. I've been avoiding it, but I can't anymore." He spoke of loneliness, of feeling trapped in a life he couldn't name, of wanting something, someone else. My chest tightened. Each word cut deeper than the last. The rain outside seemed to lean closer, pressing against the glass as if to hear every confession. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said, voice breaking, but I couldn't stop it. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I let the silence stretch, listening to the sound of his own guilt echo through the room. I remembered all the times he had held me close, all the promises whispered in the dark, and now each memory was a shadow, twisted by betrayal. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but I stayed, because I needed to see it, to hear it, to survive it. The rain slowed, becoming a soft drizzle, yet inside me the storm raged on. I realized that betrayal is not just an act, it's a series of moments, each one a tiny fracture, until the whole structure collapses. I wrote it down later in my journal, every feeling, every glance, every word he had spoken. I needed to own it. to make it real, because ignoring it would have been worse. By the time he left, the sky had darkened further. The city glistened under streetlights, reflections dancing on wet asphalt. I stepped outside, letting the rain soak through my coat. I didn't care. For the first time, I didn't care. Because surviving is not about forgiveness. Not yet. It's about seeing the truth and walking forward anyway. The cafe smelled of rain-wet streets and coffee. I chose a table by the window, watching droplets race each other down the glass. The world outside blurred into gray streaks, but inside, everything was sharply defined. He arrived later than expected. His coat was damp, hair sticking to his forehead. He tried to smile, but the effort was too fragile, too forced. I didn't stand. I didn't greet him. I simply watched, letting the minutes stretch between us. "I'm glad you came," he said, voice low, cautious. I nodded, silent. Not because I was angry, but because my heart was frozen in anticipation of what he would say next. He spoke first of trivial things, the weather, work, avoiding the truth like a tightrope walker avoiding a fall. I let him. I needed to hear him choose the right moment, or any moment, to reveal the fracture that had grown between us. And then the words came. Confession, admittance, the truth I had feared. "There's someone else," he said. His eyes avoided mine. "I didn't plan it. I never wanted to hurt you, but it happened." I felt a hollow ache in my chest, a sharp, twisting pain, the kind that steals your breath and leaves you trembling in the quiet. "Why?" I whispered, not even knowing if I wanted the answer. He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment I saw shame, regret, confusion. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I was weak. Maybe I needed to feel alive again." I wanted to scream, to demand, to push him away, but I stayed, because hearing it, seeing it, facing it, was the only way to reclaim my own power. The rain outside softened to a gentle drizzle, tapping against the window like a quiet witness to our pain. Each drop mirrored the beat of my heart, erratic, unsure, alive. I remembered all the small moments, the first dinner we shared, the quiet mornings with coffee, the laughter in empty streets, and I realized each of those memories still belonged to me, not to him, not to her. They were mine. We sat in silence for a long time, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. I thought about leaving, about walking away into the rain, but something held me. Not hope for him, not love, but recognition that I could endure this, survive this, and still feel whole. Finally, I spoke. "Do you even love her?" I asked, not accusing, not pleading, just stating what I already knew. His eyes flickered. The answer remained unspoken, but the silence spoke louder than words ever could. I left the cafe without another word. I let the rain wash over me, cold and cleansing. Each step on the wet pavement reminded me, life moves forward even when the heart is fractured. By the time I returned home, I was soaked, but I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt alive because I had seen the truth, and knowing the truth was the first step to reclaiming myself. I opened my journal that night and began writing. Every feeling, every word, every ache poured onto the page. The storm inside me became something tangible, something I could handle. And somewhere between the rain and the ink, I realized healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means acknowledging the pain and learning to walk forward anyway. The rain had softened to a quiet drizzle by morning. The sky was gray but calm, as if holding its breath after the storm. I sat by the window with a cup of tea. Outside, the city glimmered with reflections of streetlights on wet pavement. Everything seemed muted, but peaceful. I no longer waited for him. No apologies were needed. No explanations could change what had happened. I had felt betrayal, heartbreak, and loss. And yet, here I was, alive, whole, stronger than I had been before. I walked through the apartment, touching familiar objects with new eyes. The coat he had worn was gone. His cup, now empty, sat on the counter. Even the small notes he left, insignificant, they no longer held power over me. I did. That night, I slept alone. The rain tapped softly against the window, a companion, not a judge. Memories of him still came. A laugh, a glance, a touch, but they no longer demanded me. They were simply part of the past. I returned to writing, not letters to him, but letters to myself, to capture my thoughts, to honor my feelings, to remind myself that life moves forward, even when love ends. Weeks later, the rain became lighter, a whisper instead of a storm. The city smelled of wet stone and spring air. One evening, I saw him across a crowded street. He looked smaller somehow. I didn't approach. I didn't look away. He smiled faintly. I nodded, and that was enough. Betrayal had shaped me, yes, but it had not destroyed me. It had revealed my strength, my resilience. I no longer feared storms. I welcomed the rain as a reminder. Even broken hearts can heal. Life continues, even when love ends. I had loved. I had been betrayed. And now I chose peace. The rain tapped softly against the window, a quiet applause for survival, for the woman who had reclaimed herself. I breathed deeply, let the air flow slowly out, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Because I was alive, because I was whole, because the storm had passed.
Sometimes pain doesn't come from enemies, but from the ones we trusted the most. Maybe that's how life teaches us to see the truth. Could you forgive such a betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, stories that will touch your heart.